In today's episode of Michaela Loves Gymnastics, we are going to revisit one of my favorite topics. Once again, I'm going to try the very exhausting task of explaining the difference between a Healy, a Ono, and a Ling turn. And I'm also going to incorporate Inbars and Endo skills because I don't feel like people understand the difference between those skills either. And let's begin. We are going to begin with skills that start in inverted giant, and the first skill we are going to discuss is the Ono turn. The Ono's turn starts off in regular grip. You turn and you go into inverted giant. So you spin on one arm and you land into a regular forward giant grip. A lean turn also starts off in inverted giant. That is why I decided to keep the first skill, the endo skill, in this section of the video so people can understand that you can only do a lean turn out of inverted giant. So you have to be in the inverted giant to do the full spin to land back in the inverted giant. That is what a lean turn is. I hope this helped. The reason why I believe a lot of people have confusion between the difference between a lean turn and a Healy turn is because they can't understand that beginning in inverted giant position for the lean turn. So I decided to keep the endo starter because we all understand that you can only do an endo starter from this position from an inverted giant position. So her second skill is the lean turn in this example because she's already in inverted giant position. She is hopping her gripping arm and spinning on her other arm to complete the full turn, landing back into endo or inverted giant grip. The next inverted giant skill that I want to talk about are endos. Endos are straddle giant skills from an inverted giant position. They are incredibly difficult skills that we rarely see because I believe they are slightly undervalued, but that's neither here nor there. So the first one we're going to start off with is the endo giant plane. It is a half turn into inverted giant grip, and you do a full giant, not full giant, a full giant swing in straddle position. The next inverted giant skill that we need to talk about is lovingly known as the white. It is the endo giant swing with a half turn, landing into regular giant. A lot of the times, this skill is connected into a release move or into a dismounting skill. Another skill that is kind of undervalued at a D, so we rarely see this skill in competition, but when we do, it is excellent. This is an endo giant swing from inverted giants with a half turn, a white. The next skill we are going to discuss is the endo with a full turn. That is the endo straddle skill with a full turn at the end of the pirouette. It is absolutely one of the most difficult skills in the quarter points. We rarely see this skill because it's so hard to take that skill to handstand. Most gymnasts who's ever done this under these open codes has lost 5/10 of a point because they cannot land that skill in handstand. It is so undervalued, so underappreciated. It's one of my favorite terms in all of Dakota points. So this is a hard part in the conversation. So now we go into Healy terms. Now, Heelys do not start from the inverted giant position. That's why I chose to keep this first clip in because it clearly shows her, turning from a Ono turn into a Healy. And as we discussed earlier in the video, you have to land Ono turns in regular giant position. So you start a Healy turn from regular giant position. You spin on one arm on your turning arm, and then you land into inverted giant position. So in this clip, I chose to keep the Ono at the beginning and the Endo full at the end to prove that in order for it to be a Healy, you have to begin in regular forward giant position, do a full turn, land in inverted giant position. So it's only certain skills you can do before a Healy and certain skills you can do after a Healy for it can still to be considered a Healy turn. I know it's kind of confusing because of the grips and if by certain camera angles, if you're not seeing what position the girl turned in initially, it may be a little bit hard to tell what grip she's in. But if she's in forward giant grip and doing a full turn and landing into inverted giant, that is a Healy turn. If she's doing an inverted giant swing, doing a full turn and landing back into inverted giant swing, that is a, a Ling turn. If she's doing a inverted giant swing, doing a full turn and landing back into a forward giant swing, that is a Ono turn. I hope this helps. Inbar giants are forward giant swings where you're doing a pike circle through the low bar, which is like basically a toe on without putting your toes on the bars. You're basically in a pike position throughout the whole circle, and your feet are not touching the bars. Um, it is one of the most difficult forward giant swinging skills you can do in the Dakota points. And there are three general variations that we see. The next skill we're talking about is the Inbar giant swing with a half turn. It is basically the exact same skill that we just talked about, but with a half turn. You could either land this skill in inverted giant swing or in regular giant swing and still get the D value for the skill. The final variation of the M-bar skill is the M-bar full turn. This skill is worth a D. It's worth a E in Dakota points. It is the most used variation of these E turns that we see because it's out of a regular giant swing. So it's easy to connect skills out of this, such as dismount, such as pats, such as transitions, such as Takachevs. So we see this skill a lot, but it's still very hard. And this is a brief list of some of my favorite turns and close bar work on uneven bars. I love you all. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next episode of